Said the subject of this work, Mr. Uppaluri Gopala Krishnamurti, 1, was born of middle-class Brahmin parents on the morning of July the 9th, 1918, in the village of Masulipatam, South India. As far as we know, there were no peculiar events surrounding his birth, celestial or otherwise. His mother died of puerperal fever 7 days after giving birth to her first and only child. Upon her deathbed, she implored the maternal grandfather of the boy to take special care of him, adding that she was certain that he had a great and important destiny before him. The grandfather took this prediction, and his daughter's request, very seriously, and vowed to give the boy all the advantages of a wealthy Brahmin prince. The father soon remarried, leaving Uji to be cared for by the grandparents. The grandfather was an ardent theosophist and knew J. Krishnamurti, Annie Besant, Col. Alcott, and the other leaders of the Theosophical Society. Uji was to meet all these people in his youth, and was to spend most of his formative years around Adyar, the world headquarters of the Theosophical Society, in Madras, India. Uji says of that time, "My grandfather kept a sort of open house into which were invited traveling monks and renunciates, religious scholars, pundits, various gurus, mahatmas, and swamis. There were endless discussions on philosophy, comparative religions, occultism, and metaphysics. Every wall of the house was covered with famous Hindu and theosophical leaders, especially J. Krishnamurti. The boy's childhood was, in short, steeped in religious lore, philosophical discourse, and the influence of various spiritual personages. All this appealed to the boy greatly. He even begged one traveling guru, who arrived with a huge retinue of camels, disciples and attendants, to take him away with him so that he might become a student of his spiritual teaching. The boy Uji was taken by the grandfather all over India to visit holy places and people, ashramas, retreats, and centers of learning. He spent 7 summers in the Himalayas studying classical yoga with a famous adept, Swami Sivananda. It was in these early years of his life that Uji began to feel that something was wrong somewhere, referring to the whole religious tradition into which he had been immersed almost from the beginning. His yoga master, a strict and self-righteous figure of authority, was startled by Uji when the latter found him devouring some hot pickles, forbidden for yogis, behind closed doors. Uji, just a boy, said to himself, "How can this man deceive himself and others, pretending to be one thing while doing another?" He gave up his yoga practices, maintaining a healthy skepticism towards all things spiritual on into his adulthood. More and more he wanted to do things my way, questioning the authority of others over him. Breaking from the traditions of his Brahminic background, he tore from his body the sacred thread, symbol of his religious heritage. He became a young cynic, rejecting the spiritual conventions of his culture, and questioning everything for himself. He displayed less and less respect for the religious institutions and customs thought so important by his family and community. In him developed a healthy disdain for his religious inheritance, a disdain which was to develop into an acute sense of what he was later to call the hypocrisy of the holy business. His grandmother said of him that he had the heart of a butcher. All this allowed him time to develop the tremendous courage and insight necessary to brush aside the entire psychological and genetic content of his past. By the age of 21, Uji had become a quasi-atheist, studying secular Western philosophy and psychology at the University of Madras. At this juncture, he was asked by a friend to go with him to visit the famous sage of Arunachala, Bhagavan S.I. Ramana Maharshi, at his ashram at Tiruvannamalai, not far south of Madras. In the year 1939, Uji reluctantly went. He was convinced by that time that all holy men were phonies and were taking people for a ride. But to his surprise, Ramana Maharshi was different. The Bhagavan, a serene, doe-eyed sage of the highest wisdom and integrity, could not but make a strong impression on the young Uji. He rarely spoke to those who approached him with questions,